But first, we look at the role China's military is playing internationally and its key contributions to the United Nations. Earlier, I talked with Under-Secretary General for Field Support at the UN, Atul Khare. Atul Khare, thanks so much for joining us from United Nations headquarters in New York. You know, we've all been looking very closely at the PLA's 90th anniversary and the reforms that are happening with the Chinese military. How does this play in to the role, the growing role, that China has taken in UN peacekeeping since it started way back now in 1990?
You know, in fact, China today is in a very unique position. It is the only country in the world which is a permanent member of the Security Council, which is amongst the top 10 troop contributors. In fact, currently, by the number of people, it is the 8th largest contributor in the world, and which is also one of the top 10 financial contributors to peacekeeping. In fact, it is actually the 2nd largest financial contributor, just after United States, contributing about 10% of the total budgets of peacekeeping operations. So it is the only country in the world which has a truly unique perspective, being a provider of mandates by virtue of being a permanent member of the Security Council, being a major provider of financial resources to carry out those mandates, and being a major provider of troops, both uniformed personnel from the military, but also individual police officers who are doing an excellent job in different parts of the world, including in far-off places and difficult places such as South Sudan, Mali, Lebanon with UNIFIL, and of course with Western Sahara and Cyprus. So I think the Chinese PLA and the Chinese government today has a truly remarkable perspective to ensure that the agenda of peace and security of the United Nations can be implemented and can be taken forward.
China's role in peacekeeping has evolved since those handful of peacekeepers were deployed to Damascus back in 1990. We saw very early on that they were mainly civilian staff, engineers, police, as you said, but now increasingly combat ready soldiers being deployed. Is that helping in some of the hotspots that you mentioned?
Oh, absolutely. In fact, you know, the People's Liberation Army of China has, in fact, as you were pointing out, has developed its contributions to peacekeeping since the earliest times of early 90s. In fact, when I was special representative in Timor-Leste, I encouraged a lot of Chinese military observers, military liaison officers to join us. And also, I appointed a person called Mr. Zeping Guan as the chief of staff of the entire UN police in Timor-Leste. At that point of time, he was the highest-ranking Chinese officer. And then today, we have even a deployment of a full infantry battalion from China in South Sudan. And they are doing excellent job. Not to say that the doctors, the level 1+ hospitals or the level 2 hospitals, be they in Mali, be they in Lebanon, are not doing a good job. They are also doing a good job. The engineers are doing a good job.
One of the key reforms in peacekeeping, because it has been criticized for being slightly slow to react to some of the world crises, is the creation of this standby force, which China has pledged lots of troops to. It is also coinciding with the PLA being made leaner and meaner, if you like. How important is that going to be, a rapid reaction force in UN peacekeeping for the first time?
I think it would be critical, because we are taking close to 6 months to deploy, and I think that timeline is simply unacceptable. As the Secretary General, Mr. Guterres, has pointed out again and again, we need to be nimble, effective, and efficient. We need to be rapid in responding to crisis. And that is why both my colleagues in the Department of Peacekeeping Operations and my own department, Field Support, had endeavored to make what we call the PCRS, the Peacekeeping Capacity Readiness System. And currently we have one unit which is deployable, which is rapidly deployable. That means it can deploy within around 2 months of a notice being provided to them. But we hope that in due course, the 8,000 standby force promised by China would be at that rapidly deployable level. I want to also thank China because apart from their own standby force, they have promised to assist. The African standby force, they have also promised to assist the development of nearly 2,000 peacekeepers from other African countries, and therefore we hope that these peacekeepers from other African countries trained by China would also be willing to rapidly deploy.
Yes, the logistics and the false multipliers are as important in a UN peacekeeping operation, aren't they, as the personnel. Just take me through then where we can expect more of these Chinese peacekeepers to be deployed. What sorts of missions? Obviously, Africa, the biggest continent when it comes to peacekeeping deployments. But what about the future? And what sort of qualities do Chinese soldiers have when it comes to these peacekeeping missions going forward?
I think I will start with the most important quality of the Chinese soldiers. First and foremost, their professionalism. They are extremely good at whatever they do. Just to give you one example, you know, the transport battalion from China, which we have in Lebanon, has covered since the time of its deployment with various escorting, convoys and so on, close to 600,000 kilometers. That is virtually like going around the world 30 times. So I think they do great work, they are professional. Second, they are extremely disciplined. So far, you know, I have not even received the most minor complaint of a conduct and discipline violation from any Chinese soldier, not even breaking the internal rules and regulations of curfew, or extremely disciplined in whatever they do. So I think it is this professionalism and discipline which I count as their greatest qualities, and they have a tendency, since they work with other countries, to rub off on the other countries through sheer force of example. I also want to point out a third element which the Chinese soldiers bring, and that is equipment. They are one of the countries which has got the full range of equipment which is required under the statement of unit requirements, and sometimes, in fact, actually more than what is required under the statement of unit requirements. This is very important because we are facing the challenge where many countries have good soldiers, but they are not properly equipped with armored personnel carriers or with helicopters, and the Chinese, they are very well equipped. So I think the three qualities which the Chinese bring to peacekeeping, as I said before, are professionalism, discipline, and of course, good equipment.
Atul Khare, we'll end it there. Thank you so much for joining us from the headquarters of the United Nations in New York. And next up, our panel weighs in with more perspective on the PLA. But first, a quick break. Please stay with us. You're watching The Heat.